Good morning, Kinders. We're back for another story with story cards. And this one is called The Elves and the Shoemaker. Let's see what happens with the elves, like Santa's elves, and the shoemaker. This is based on a tale, a story, by the Grimm brothers. Once upon a time, there lived two shoemakers, a man and his wife. They lived in a small shoe shop where they made and repaired shoes. Like others in their neighborhood, the shoemakers were honest. They told the truth. They were hardworking. They worked hard, but they were poor. They did not have a lot of money. One fall day, the shoemakers had only a few bits and pieces of shoe leather left and no money to buy other supplies. I still have hammers and nails, but there is hardly enough leather to make another pair of shoes, said the shoemaker sadly. And there is no food left for dinner, added his wife. That evening, the shoemakers left the scraps of leather on the work table and they went to bed hungry. They would decide what to do tomorrow. The next morning, the shoemakers went into their shop. "Goodness gracious," they both exclaimed. They could not believe their eyes, for there, next to the needles and thread, sat a perfect pair of shoes made from the scraps of leather. "What beautiful shoes! Such excellent work," said the shoemaker. "Who could have done this job for us?" His wife took the shoes outside the shop to marvel at them in the daylight. Just then, one of the king's men walked by. "What beautiful shoes! Such excellent work," said the king's man. "I must buy them," and he gave the shoemakers a gold coin. With the money, the happy shoemakers were able to invite their hungry neighbors to a celebration, and off they went to the market to buy food. And with the money they had left, they bought enough leather for 2 pairs of shoes. That night, the neighbors came over for a simple but delicious meal. Later, the shoemakers cut out more leather with large scissors. They left it on the workbench to work on the next day. Then they went to bed. While the shoemakers slept, 2 tiny elves scurried in. They busily snipped and stitched with long needles and thick thread. They shined their 2 perfect shoes with a rag. Then they left the shoes on the workbench, and in a flash, they were gone. The next morning, the shoemakers went to their work table. "Goodness," they cried. There on the workbench sat 2 beautiful pairs of shoes. The shoemakers put the shoes in the shop window. Just then, 2 of the queen's ladies-in-waiting walked by. "What beautiful shoes! In our opinion, this is the most excellent work we have ever seen. Such precise stitching," they said. The queen's ladies gave the shoemakers 3 gold coins. The grateful shoemakers took the money and bought even more leather. "Who is making such beautiful shoes for us?" the shoemaker wondered as he cut up the leather. "We must find out who is helping us." "Tonight, let's stay up and watch," said his wife. That night they did not go to sleep. They hid behind the door of their workshop and they waited quietly. The shoemakers stayed awake, watching the shop, and at the stroke of midnight, 2 elves in old, worn clothing suddenly appeared. The elves hurried to the workbench, grabbed the pieces of shoe leather, and in no time at all made 4 beautiful pairs of shoes. The shoemakers were amazed. "Did you notice the holes in their ragged clothes?" said the wife. "They have done so much for us. Perhaps we can do something for them." The next day, while the husband sold the 4 new pairs of shoes, his wife made new clothes for the elves. That night, instead of more leather, the shoemakers left the clothes and a note on the work table. The note said, "Dear elves, thank you for helping us." They signed it, the shoemakers. At the stroke of midnight, the 2 raggedy elves appeared. They read the note and joyfully put on their new clothes. They danced, sang, and laughed with glee. Then they skipped out the door. The elves never came back, but the grateful shoemakers had enough money to continue making shoes to live a happy life. So what happened first in this story? First, the shoemakers didn't have any money for food, and they didn't have any scraps, any leather for the shoes. They only had a few scraps, right? So they went to bed and they thought, we better figure out this problem, but we'll sleep first. What happened next? They went to bed, and in the morning, there was a pair of shoes. They sold the shoes and got enough money for some food for them and their neighbors. And they got enough to make more shoes. So they went to bed and the elves came back. Then the elves made them 2 more pairs of shoes. What happened last? At the very end of the story, the shoemakers made the elves some clothes, didn't they? Because they noticed that their clothes were not fantastic. They had holes in them and they needed new clothes. So they did something nice for the elves. All right, Kinders, it's time to do a new book for our book basket. We've been talking about the pond by my house. So I have a new mini book, and it's called At the Pond. Make those snap words yellow. At and the. At and the. Name where it says read and colored by. Put your name. It's your book. At the Pond. All right, let's look. You see snap words? Point your finger. Point your power. You can see a frog. That's right, there's a frog in the picture. That'll give you a hint. You can see a, those are all snap words, all sight words. Frog. You can see a dragonfly. These are all animals that live near a pond. You can see a duck. You can see a log. 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 You can see a turtle. You can see a fly. You can see a lily pad. Lily, just like Taylor's sister Lily, pad. Pad, lily pad. That's what this is called. So this leaf is green, and then this flower on top of the leaf is a beautiful white and pink color. can see cattails. Look at the word cat in that word, cat tails. That's what these are called. Andrew thinks they look like big corn dogs because they're brown. Last page. At the pond, you can see all kinds of things. And you can draw those things in this picture of the pond. You can draw a dragonfly, you can draw a fly, you can draw, there's already some plants and rocks, but you can put some cattails in there, or a lily pad, maybe a frog. So you can decorate your pond any way you like. All right, 3 times, read it 3 times, find someone to read it to, and then you may decorate and put it in your book basket. All right, Kinders, until next time.